The question is, as on the order paper, I now call Barry Sherman on a 7-minute limit.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much for calling me. And can I say to the House that the reason that I got involved with the autism cause, if I can call it that, is very largely because of the honourable lady who's just spoken, who really paved the way in terms of her private members' bill and everything she's done with the all-party group. When I was the chair of the Education Select Committee and the Children's Schools and Family Select Committee for 10 years, I had a guilty conscience because I never really persuaded my committee, although we looked at special educational need in some depth, never drilled down into the autism sector strongly enough. So I always had a guilty conscience. And so when I finished as chair of the Select Committee, and indeed I found that I have in my large family one of the members of my family is on the autism spectrum, it really energised me to get more involved and really working harmoniously with the all-party group on autism. We founded the Westminster Commission on Autism, and we have already, in a very short period of time, produced 2 reports. One, a spectrum of obstacles, an inquiry into access to healthcare for autistic people that has already made quite substantial, brought about substantial changes in how people perceive healthcare. You know, we found out how worried people on the autism spectrum were about going into A&E, that business and the lights and the noise, or even going to the GP. Access to healthcare was strictly limited for so many people on the autism spectrum, and I'm delighted that this report has had such a great influence. Of course I will.
Very grateful to my honourable friend. Would you agree with me that initiatives like the Autism Hour promoted by the National Autistic Society last year, where shops actually opened for an hour with their lights dimmed and drew attention to how exactly this is describing going into a busy place can be difficult, is a very good way of raising public awareness?
My honourable friend is absolutely right, and indeed I would urge members of Parliament in their constituencies to hold them in autism-friendly environments, you know, because soft lighting and more relaxed, not too much noise. It can make a very, very big difference to accessibility. Can I also mention, this is National Autism Awareness Week, and we were proud yesterday, the Westminster Commission on Autism, as I say, working very closely with the parliamentary group, and the Right Honourable Lady is part of the Commission, we came out with a spectrum of harmful interventions for autism. Many people in this country, some very wicked people, play on people's stress and worries and concerns and sell treatments for autism that really should be banned. They use social media. It is a disgrace in our society that people prey on a family that is very stressed with a child or a member with autism. And if we took evidence on this, and it was really upsetting to hear the kinds of treatments and therapies that were on offer. And and it very interesting area, because, you know, is it the food regulator or is it the medical regulator? No one was quite sure who you complained to. Here's the answer, and we launched yesterday. I hope honourable members on all sides will promulgate this very important. But can I just say, I've intensively got into this field now. What is the most serious thing we've got to address? And that is when someone notices, a mother, usually both parents, but a mother nearly always knows very early, that something's not quite right. Yeah? And that frustration, who do you talk to? Where do you go? Where's the support? And I'm not going to be political at all. One little thing is children's services in this country are deeply under pressure in every local authority. I'll give way to my honourable friend.
Would he also agree that another time that is crucial is when someone moves from child services to adult services? Yeah. And that can be a very traumatic period if it isn't handled properly.
Absolutely right. All my experience, Mr Deputy Speaker, is the most work needs now to be put into that early family support. In every way, early family support. People feel so isolated and bereft of support and bereft of knowledge. And there is so much, thanks to the Right Honourable Lady and others, there is a lot of information out there, but how do you get it when you've never really even understood what autism means? I'll give way.
I'm most grateful. He's been very generous. I increasingly get families with autistic children in my surgeries complaining about bad housing conditions, overcrowding, private rented sector, really appalling conditions, infestation, noise and that, but also temporary accommodation and families being moved on. This creates particular stress for autistic children. Does he agree that in making housing assessments we should take more account of autism?
I'm afraid absolutely right in that. And the interesting thing, which we've already said in this debate already, it goes right across the whole spectrum. So we can look at health, and of course to make access to health is important. Access to education is so important, especially when you get a very supportive environment of primary school, and then going to the big school is really a very big challenge for a child on the autism spectrum. And getting that right and supporting the family to support the child at that time. Recently, many members were part of the Larry Love campaign, where a severely autistic, a wonderful young man was in danger of being extradited to the United States. Anyone who looked and met Larry Love and understood his condition was sympathetic. And what a great victory that it looks like at the moment that we have been successful in supporting Larry. I'll give way.
I thank my honourable friend for giving way. He mentions Laurie Love actually was at university at the same time as Laurie Love at Glasgow University, and I remember him well from those days. And the case he refers to is critical, but is that not exactly what we need to tackle in the UK now? We need a national framework, including engaging with devolved administrations, to ensure there is a proper policy framework to safeguard the rights of autistic people across the workplace and in other forms of public life.
I think my honourable friend is right. And we need to spread the knowledge. We need to spread the knowledge, and we need to get government departments right across the piece. They almost ought to be a minister for autism, right across, but making sure that seamlessly across all departments there is this high level of awareness. Can I go back to early diagnosis? The evidence given to the Commission on early diagnosis in Sweden. Sweden seems to be one of the places one looks to. I believe the professor we interviewed was the man who actually minted the expression, the autism spectrum. But the evidence they gave was that every child in Sweden is evaluated to see if they're on the spectrum very early on. I think it's 7 years of age. But early on, every child in Sweden. Why not every child in the United Kingdom? That is what we should be looking for. Early diagnosis and early support of the family. Can I just finish by saying, I've mentioned harmful interventions. Criminal justice. A lot of people on the autism spectrum fall foul of the criminal justice system. A person on the autism spectrum can get on the bus in a normal way in the morning, the bus is cancelled or something happens, it disturbs the routine, and that has a very big impact on someone on the autism spectrum. They may behave rather antisocially, the police may be called, they end up in a cell. I've heard that story so many times, and indeed I think the criminal justice system has to look very carefully about the needs of people on the autism spectrum. I give way to my right honourable friend.
Just briefly, I don't know whether the honourable gentleman has seen the National Autistic Society's latest film in Too Much Information, which is exactly about the travel problem and somebody being overwhelmed when they're travelling on public transport.
You're short of time.
Right honourable lady, no, I'm going to accept that wholeheartedly. I want to finish by saying this is wonderful that we've got a short debate on autism. We've got to keep coming back to this. It is a very important part of all our lives as members of Parliament to know more, do more, help more. If that is part of what we've managed to achieve this week, I'm very proud of this House. Thank you.